All righty. Good morning and welcome to Thursday morning, July the 16th already. Today's devotion is entitled The Necessity of Prayer. Romans chapter 8, verses 15 and 16. The Spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. In the second half, this is again Tim Keller's writing. In the second half of my adult life, I discovered prayer. I had to. In the fall of 1999, I taught a Bible study course on the Psalms. It became clear to me that I was barely scratching the surface of what the Bible commanded and promised regarding prayer. Then came the dark weeks in New York after 9/11, when our whole city sank into a kind of corporate clinical depression even as it rallied. For my family, the shadow was intensified as my wife Kathy struggled with the effects of Crohn's disease. Finally, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. At one point during all this, my wife urged me to do something with her we had never been able to muster the self discipline to do regularly. She asked me to pray with her every night. Every night. She used an illustration that crystallized her feelings very well. As we remember it, she said something like this: Imagine you were diagnosed with such a lethal condition that the doctor told you that you would die within hours unless you took a particular medicine, a pill every night before going to sleep. Imagine that you were told that you could never miss it or you would die. Would you forget? Would you not get around to it some nights? No, it would be so crucial that you wouldn't forget, you would never miss. Well, if we don't pray together to God, we're not going to make it because of all we are facing. I'm certainly not. We have to pray. We can't let it just slip our minds. I think over the years, my own experience has been in being a pastor, recognizing how important prayer is, not just to individuals, but to a church family together, to hold one another up in prayer, to encourage one another. For there are things in the lives of people that we know that we feel powerless to really correct or help or heal or anything like that. And so our only recourse really is to go to the Father in prayer and make our requests known to Him. And that's an act, a work of God's grace, that He would allow us mere mortals, yes, created in His image, yes, His Son shed His blood for us, but at the end of the day, those are the reasons we get to enter into the throne room of God. Not on our own, not because we're good people or anything like that. In order to make ourselves heard, we must approach Him in prayer. It is, as Tim Keller says here, the necessity of prayer. Without asking, we're not going to receive. That's just seems to be the way it rolls. I don't know. Over the years in ministry, I really can't remember how many different books on the subject of prayer that I've read and made notes of and all those kinds of things. We did one from Sky Jathani in our Sunday school class a few months back. Was Jesus serious about prayer? And yes, he was very serious about that. And the connection that we're given here is we opened up with Romans, excuse me, Romans chapter 8, is that through coming to him, we've been adopted. We've been adopted to sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. That's as personal as you can get in referring to God our Father, Abba. Some people liken it to little kids saying daddy or pops or something like that. It's an intimate relationship because we've been adopted. We weren't born into the family, like I wasn't born into my mom and dad's family. I was I was chosen as an adopted child to the King of Kings. And that's our position. The Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit. In other words, God's Spirit is speaking to our spirit, and He's telling us, you know what, you're God's child. I think we should make little cards to put in our wallets. Remember, today you are one of God's children. That's a powerful perspective, I think. I like his illustration with his wife and her suggesting that they pray together every night, and they did, and they did, and went through 9/11. He had his issues, she had her issues, all of those things, and obviously in that kind of situation, where else are you going to go except to God in prayer? God, the miracle worker, Jesus, the one who heals, so many who came to him that would have been impossible for regular doctors, but not for Jesus. All he needed to do was touch them and heal them. And the people who came to Jesus, we might not really see it as prayer, but it is a request. And that is covered in the scriptures. Make your requests known. Don't keep them to yourself. Don't think, try to think you're going to get it all solved yourself. The necessity, the absolute need for prayer. Years back, I read a book on prayer, and I can't remember who it was. One of the early people, well known, and I can't remember his name now. Well known in the early days of the church and giving it birth and making it to be effective in preaching the gospel, in sharing the gospel, all those kinds of things. And in that, they realized that believers have to gather themselves together for prayer. And they, if I'm probably not going to get this correct, but they referred to prayer as the boiler room of the church. That when powerful things were going to happen in a church, it was going to begin by people praying together and lifting up those requests in depth, in power, realizing we have got to ask God for help here. We've got to enlist him in our praying and asking him to help us get accomplished what needs to get accomplished for the growing of his kingdom. And that's the same for the growing of our own spiritual condition as well. That we take these things before the Lord and we give them over to him. Jesus taught us that simple little prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. And then leave it there. Leave it in his hands and trust him. Always trust him. Blessings to you today on this Thursday.